We got the Desmond Bane trade, where the Memphis Grizzlies traded Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic for KCP, Cole Anthony, and 4 first round picks, and a pick swap, which was, in my opinion, a lot. We don't have to get into the actual identity of the picks, but the one for this season, just in terms of immediate applicability here, relevance. Orlando traded their 2025 first round pick in addition to their 2026 pick. And the reason they could trade subsequent years is that they had 2 in 2025, so they get around the Stepien rule. They have their second pick, which is Denver's 2025 pick from the Aaron Gordon trade. So in some small way, we helped make this happen. Denver helped make this happen. Fluent and Chill says we could have traded KCP. We can talk about that a little bit. I do think that one of the reasons that there's so many first round picks included in this deal is either one of the first round picks or the pick swap was included to get off of the KCP deal. I don't think that it was more than that because KCP only has 2 years left on his contract. It's like, even if you don't think he was worth the money that he made this year, after next season, he's going to be an expiring contract, which is like, that's basically just a neutral value deal for a player like KCP that, even if he's not going to be great, like, he can play, especially in a rising cap environment. Yeah. What was your first reaction to seeing this news? So I think a lot of people saw it before me because I was sleeping in.
It's a very interesting trade just because of the amount of picks that were given. And I think that was everyone's immediate reaction was, if Bane is getting that return, that many first round picks, what is someone like KD or Giannis going to get? And I do think a lot of that speculation is overblown because each trade is its own. Like, yes, there is a little bit of a market, but it's mostly about like what teams have to offer, the need that they have for that specific player, how much they have to actually give up and trade. It does affect some things, but I think like you can't just go into every negotiation as a GM now and say, well, Desmond Bane got 4 first round picks, so we want 7 for Giannis. It's like no team's going to take you seriously at that point. The KCP contract was super interesting. I do agree that they probably had to include an extra pick to get off of it, which is funny that that's the language that we're using for that now, since we'd been missing KCP as a piece and for his skill set. And the dollar amount that he's getting is not going to be as much as the salary cap increases from year to year. And he's still going to provide something to a team. But I don't think he necessarily...
I feel like Orlando was just like anxious to get this deal done, honestly.
Yeah, that too. It's like whatever it takes to get the deal done.
The thing is, I'm going to include some information from Jeff Weltman, who is the president of basketball operations for the Orlando Magic. It's actually been really nice to have somebody out and visible to talk about what the direction is of the team, as he talked about in his exit interviews, but in his press conference that he did following this trade, he talked about the fact that they didn't even know that Desmond Bane was available for trade. And I agreed with that. I'm not shocked that Memphis traded him, but it is like, okay, that's surprising because it wasn't like rumored that they were shopping him, for example. But Orlando was very aggressive in going after him. They were like, we want to get in on this before we're in a bidding war, for example. And I think that Bane is the kind of player that would invite a bidding war just because he's pretty versatile and can fit on a lot of different teams. Like, he doesn't just fill, it's not like he needs a particular kind of team around him. Like, 1, he's a shooter, so he's going to fit anywhere. 2, he has a bit of shot creation himself, although, we can talk about whether he is all the things that Orlando needs or not. But yeah, so I think Jeff Weltman basically was like, oh, he's like on a short list of players that we knew if he ever became available, we wanted to jump on that, and they did. And they might have overpaid by like a pick to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the trying to get off the KCP deal at the same time. Because again, it's really like, okay, it's only like a negative-ish asset for 1 year, and then it's an expiry after that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not horrible, but I just find it interesting, like the narratives around KCP with the idea that the Nuggets let him walk and how that's all shaping out. And there's multiple sides to looking at that. Mike Weisberg says, as a Celtics fan, the thing that sticks out is Orlando's going for it. They're going to get expensive quickly. And Fluent and Chill talks about how they're already super young and having that many picks may be useless. Therefore, they just went for a player like Bane. So I've heard similar sentiments to these two comments where they're not likely to draft a player as good as Bane potentially. And I get that argument. But that's less picks you can use. You brought up to me that that's the all-in move. And now they don't have as many picks to go trade for someone else, even though I really like Bane a lot for them. And I don't think KCP fit as well as Bane, of course. So using that money to get him, I think is a good move.
All right. It's effectively an upgrade on KCP.
Yeah.
And obviously they also trade Cole Anthony, who's their backup point guard on that team.
Yeah.
For one guard. So they're like, we are getting all the guards off our team. And Bane is a guard. He's more like a bigger wing. He's pretty stout and that kind of thing. They have like this thing against point guards in that front office, which I'll talk a little bit about.
Yeah, but just overall with the trade, there are people who are like really harsh on Orlando for how much they gave up. Like NBA Chicken, friend of the show, gave them an F and was very upset about moving all these picks. I think where I ended up is it's good for both teams. They both gave up something they didn't really want to give up, like maybe too many picks. I don't think Memphis really wanted to give up Bane, although there's all these rumors about now they're going to be possibly tearing it down and Ja could be on the way out, etc. But, who really wants to get rid of a player as good as Bane unless it really gets you something great in return? They kind of couldn't say no to this. Well, that's the thing
is, like, I don't know that Memphis was looking to shop Bane. But once Orlando found out that he was available, I mean, I've heard a lot of Memphis fans describe this was a Godfather offer. Like Orlando was like, we're willing to overpay to get this guy. And I don't think they overpaid by that much. It's enough that I want to comment on it because I like you said that I'd mentioned to you before. It's like, okay, it's an opportunity cost. I don't care about making those pick selections, but it's like, that's one more first round pick that you don't have to make an upgrade for a utility player at a different roster spot, for example, to help build out the rest of your team, which is really annoying to me. But especially if I don't necessarily think that Bane is all like this is your all-in move. Like he has to be able to fix 90% of your problems. I don't know that he necessarily does that, but he does make the team better. Right. And they agree with that. Like he's on their short list of guys they wanted to jump on if they ever did become available. So
he's going to fit their timeline so much more. And I like that they are getting more aggressive. Like I think all young teams like this should be going for it as soon as possible. Like I think the Thunder are kind of showing that in some degree.
Absolutely. So just a little bit of the backdrop again from the Orlando perspective on this. I am an Orlando Magic fan. So I actually watched the front office's exit interviews at the end of the season after they got eliminated from Boston. Jeff Weltman, again, the president of basketball operations, basically had three major points here, which was they're going to be in win now mode now as they move into a phase where they're like, okay, Paolo and Franz are like good enough that it's time to like move our chips into the in the middle of the table here. They're willing to sacrifice a little bit of defense for some offense now. So I was like, they're finally going to get a point guard. They didn't do that.
But maybe soon.
Yeah. He said they wanted, quote, proven shot making, which I think is interesting because I think just one thing about Desmond Bane is that he's maintained 58 to 60% true shooting in every single regular season of his career, including as a rookie, which is super impressive because rookies just aren't efficient off the bench or not. Like that's especially like Memphis. They weren't really a good offense until like a couple years into like Ja's tenure, which I guess at that point Ja had been there for a couple of years. So sure. But he struggled in the playoffs, especially recently, which is tough. So I thought the proven shot making was interesting because I thought Weltman was talking more in like a playoff context. And look, the Grizzlies, I think, are a fake good offense. Like you get them to the playoffs and it's like, oh, this is terrible. We don't know what's going on here. And so maybe that wasn't the best situation for Desmond. I don't know that Orlando is going to be a whole lot better, especially in a playoff context. Like, I think he is going to improve their regular season offense, but playoff wise, I don't know that he necessarily solves the issues that I saw with that team. Jeff Altman also talked about the need for better playmaking because he's like, I don't know why we were such a bad shooting team this year. Part of it is the shot making, but I think part of it is the needing better playmaking to
to
create
get it to
better
better shots.
quality shots, right? And he did a lot to sort of make the excuse for KCP and everybody else on the roster just having like the one of the worst shooting seasons in NBA history. If you could bring up the shooting graphic for the Orlando Magic, well, so this was one created by Todd Whitehead at Crumpled Jumper on Twitter. And if you see here in the bottom right-hand corner, this was the Orlando Magic 2025 three-point shooting season. And if you like every sort of column is another season and where each team stood, and they were the worst shooting team in the last decade. It wasn't close either.
Yeah. And for the listeners only, they are very all the way below all the other teams.
They're about point and a half off the Wizards in terms of compared to league average this season, and about a point below any other team of the last decade in terms of average 3-point percentage, which honestly, it felt even worse than that watching it as a fan. But that's something that Bane can definitely help them with. One of the, I talked about the like, okay, they didn't get a point guard. They didn't really improve their playmaking, although Bane can do some of that in like a secondary fashion. But Philip Rossman-Reich from Locked On Magic called it a quote, doubling down on their philosophy, which is no point guard / Jalen Suggs will become a good enough point guard. We're going all in on wing ball. They didn't go after Anthony Simons, who's not really a point guard, but, small guard, like
he would be good,
relatively reliable shot creator. I would have loved like Mike Conley on this team, although like a couple years ago would have been better. Like he's had a rough like season and a half ish, I would say. At his age, but I still would have liked a player like that if they were going to go for a smaller move. And he's like, "Oh, we're willing to give up a little bit of defense for offense." But they're not really giving anything up on defense because Bane is really good, and he's not as good defensively as KCP, but as good of a perimeter defender as KCP is, on a team like the Orlando Magic, you're getting diminishing marginal returns there, which is why that move never made any sense to me last year when they went to sign KCP. It was like, I guess this is just salary that they could use in a trade because KCP was incredibly redundant on that roster. They have all these defensive wings on there. They were like, he'll improve our 3-point shooting. But I'm like, even if KCP had a good shooting year, in terms of efficiency, he's not a high volume 3-point shooter. So he wasn't going to improve it that much.
And he's like a good mid-range shooter too, but
yeah,
I don't think they utilize, or why would they want to utilize that?
Right. On that team where everything inside of the arc is so cramped, like he was just spacing beyond the arc. And honestly, that's fine. I think he was fine in that role. I think they could have given up a little bit more defensively to get a real point guard, and I don't have any problem with Bane. I think if they had figured out a way to get they would have had to pry Mike Conley away from the Wolves. And Desmond Bane, I'm like, okay, now we're cooking because now they have a veteran point guard who, even when he's not on the floor, is going to be able to help these guys learn how to do point guard things. They have not had a veteran point guard on this roster with this core, which is like a big gripe of mine when it comes to the development of both Paolo and Franz as playmakers and game managers.
They could try the Russ Westbrook experiment.
No. Are you crazy? No. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I do want to give some more to, what Bane has done. I have a little interesting stat for you here, Will. Okay. They do get a shooter in Bane who can also create a bit and score off the dribble. Like he's more versatile than just being like a catch and shoot guy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten the max extension that he got. Desmond Bane is one of 7 players. This is from Fast Break Breakfast, who's a big Memphis Grizzlies fan. It's one of 7 players over the last 3 years to average 20 points and 5 assists on over 39% from 3. Can you guess 3 of the other 6? And then I'll give you the other 3. You could probably guess 2 pretty.
Steph.
Okay, that's the obvious one.
And Jason Tatum?
No.
No? He shoots a lot of
I'll
threes.
give you 4 guesses to guess 3 of them. So that's your strike.
Jokic
is one of the other 7, yes.
Damn, I'm running out of other players.
That are good shooters. He's not a point guard.
Well, he plays like a point guard. Luka, he plays like a point guard too. But is Luka?
No.
Damn it. I don't know. Lillard?
No. Okay, so Jokic and Steph, Jalen Brunson, Kyrie. Actually, I didn't realize he was averaging over 5 assists.
We had a viewer guess Kyrie correct.
Good job, Fluid and Chill. Darius Garland, who has been a good 3-point shooter for a while, and he's getting the assists. I guess over 20 points makes sense. The last one is Jamal Murray.
Oh damn. I should have done it. Should have gone for Jamal. I know he's like the 20 points is what got me on Jamal because I know
Jamal's averaged over 20 the last 3 seasons.
It's just he goes on stretches where he doesn't average 20, so then I'm
right within the season, but he always finishes around 21 by the end of the year. So that was interesting. And Desmond Bane falls in that company, which is pretty good company, right? The fact that he's getting the assists in there, even in a Memphis Grizzlies offense that is kind of like, I don't know how much passing there is in a given. They've changed their offensive philosophy just as a team and how they play so many times over the last couple of years that's another, part of it. I think part of what's boosting those numbers is the year that they had without Ja, where he only played a few games because he was suspended and then he was injured. And Desmond Bane had to just be the primary playmaker. And it was like, oh God, this is a disaster, even though he gets to work out that muscle a bit more. So if you're Orlando, you're thinking, what? We're not getting like a primary playmaker. We're not getting somebody that's going to create like super high quality shots for their guys, but we know we're getting like a decent playmaker who can make like connective passes, who's unselfish, all the good stuff that you want out of your players. And I think otherwise he's going to be a pretty good fit in Orlando. Couple of notes I have about what this means for Orlando's future. They're about to get incredibly expensive at the top. Now, I've said on this show that one of the things I want to do, I think I've said on the show, one of the things I want to do is start talking about salaries more in terms of percentage of the cap, because the numbers are going to start fluctuating so wildly as the salary cap goes up and up and up over the next few years with the new media deal. So I want to give you guys some reference about what this is going to mean for Orlando salary cap here. So Desmond Bane signed his rookie scale max extension that kicked in, I think this past season. Paolo's incoming max extension, plus Jalen Suggs, who just signed his rookie max extension that kicks in next year. Paolo's isn't going to kick in until the year after that. And Franz's is also kicking in next year because he was in Jalen Suggs' draft class, right? So when you're projecting to not next season, but the 26-27 year, if Paolo does not make All NBA and get the extra bump in his rookie scale max extension, those 4 guys are going to be making 92% of the cap of the salary cap, which obviously in the NBA we have a soft cap, which means you can go over the salary cap, but then you run into luxury tax and the first apron, the second apron, all that stuff. But most of your money is going to be going to those 4 guys, like vast majority of it. For reference, Denver's top 4 are projected to be making 105% of the cap next year. And that's before AG's bigger extension number kicks in the year after that.
Mm-hmm. And then CB, you're not including CB.
Not including Christian in that, no. That's just the top 4. And that's because Jokic is on the super max and Jamal's on the veteran max. All of Orlando's guys are on max contracts, but they're rookie scale max contracts, which means they're a slightly smaller percent of the cap than the veteran max and super max contracts, which is why I really try to differentiate when people are talking about max contracts. Kevin Durant's is not the same as MPJ's. Kevin Durant makes like 20 million more because he's on a veteran super max contract as opposed to MPJ that is on his rookie scale max extension, which was and also signed at different times. So not all maxes are created equal, just FYI. So my thing is that I don't think that Desmond Bane solves all their offensive issues, and those problems are going to continue to be evident over the next couple of years, right? So if and when this doesn't like work out in terms of fully gelling and like solving those problems to the point that they are a viable playoff offense, which I'm not sure they still are, although I think they could win around. This move indicates to me that they are more willing to put Jalen Suggs on the chopping block after next season. In particular, because they have Desmond Bane. So they go after Bane, and you kind of make the decision that, like, either Jalen Suggs is going to turn into, this incredible starting caliber point guard. Like he doesn't have to be, Steph Curry. He doesn't have to be, even Trae Young is like a playmaker or anything like that. But as your sort of primary on ball initiator, not creator, because that's still going to be Franz and Paolo. I think that there's different aspects to like the role of the on ball guys that I've tried to differentiate as we talked about this season for the Denver Nuggets, for example. Like, what's the difference between Russ and Jamal, and like when Jokic is on ball and when AG is on ball and all that kind of thing. So either Suggs will be the point guard that they need him to be, or he won't. Orlando's not going to need a million shooting guards, which they currently have. They just have, because they haven't, like, everyone talks about how many bigs they have because they have Wendell Carter Jr., they had Goga Pataze, they have Mo Wagner, and Jonathan Isaac, who's not a center, but he's a big, like all these that's only 4 guys. They actually have a ton of money and roster spots invested in wing positions because they don't have any point guards, right? One of the things I noted about this deal is that they, to get Desmond Bane, didn't give up any of Tristan Da Silva, Anthony Black, Caleb Houston, or Gary Harris, who has a team option that they ended up declining as part of this deal, but he might be back in Orlando, maybe on a minimum. I don't know. And they're in rumors to go after Nickeil Alexander-Walker after this. So I just feel like their defensive shooting guard room that like can do a little bit on offense, but not everything. And Jalen Suggs is the best of all these guys, but they need him to be a point guard, and they're going to have more money invested in Desmond Bane. So I just feel like he's going to be the one on the chopping block when this doesn't work out.
That's interesting. As somebody who some Nuggets fans are interested in trying to acquire him through some possible trade. It seems unlikely, but yeah. I mean,
they're not going to trade him now, and I think they like Jalen Suggs a lot, but this is sort of like, I don't know how far in the future they thought about this move again, like after hearing Jeff Weltman's comments about how they were like, well, we just jumped on this as soon as we found out that like he could be available. But it is the sort of logical conclusion if you're looking at where they would want to shed some money and try to create some more flexibility to try to make the roster make a little bit more sense down the line.
I did think it was interesting that Cole Anthony was in the deal too, because they're already so short on point guards. But I do like Anthony Black a lot. Gary Harris is not the kind of point guard. Obviously, he's a shooting guard, but it's another defensive shooting guard. I like the wing ball thing, like as I call it, clone ball. But you do need someone to initiate. I mean, the Celtics and the Thunder do it.
The Celtics have Derek White, who can be this like low mistake. Like he's kind of like the best non-all-star starting point guard you can have. Right. In terms of like
Jamal.
I just
non-all-star.
Right. Well, non-all-star caliber, where he's not a creator, but he can run basic actions, be low mistake, play off ball, and get out of the way. Like do all the things that you want besides be the guy. He does all the other point guard things.
Yeah. The Thunder also, like, they have SGA, but he's not like a pure point guard type of player. I think he
Right, and look
plays
at
more
their
like a shooting
offense.
guard.
They have to be a generational defense for that offense to make sense, is the thing.
It can work, but you're going to be having pain points in other areas. So I'll be interested to see
Yeah.
how they fill that out. And I do think Bane is a perfect fit. Fent Jones brought this up. But I think it's just like he can't do everything.
I think Desmond Bane is going to fit perfectly in Orlando. I don't think he's going to have any problems because I think that he fits probably on any team, right?
Yes.
He's one of those players that is just like he's gonna figure out how to contribute. And he can do so many, like a little bit of every, but he's not going to solve all their problems, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think Orlando's offense has other. Now here's the thing. Ultimately, it's up to Franz and Paolo to be good enough to make this work, and they are still very young. Well, yeah, what if Franz and Paolo don't work together? That's another thing. It might be like, oh no, we're keeping Suggs and Bane, and we've just decided the Franz and Paolo experiment doesn't work, and then we split those up. We've seen, I just feel like Orlando is a very conservative organization, and they probably look at how the Tatum Brown experiment went in Boston. They're like, nope, just give these guys enough time. They're going to figure out how to play off of each other. And I still don't think those guys play off of each other. All you had to do was give them generational spacing, and they finally made it work and won a title. But they clearly like want to make things work with both of those guys. It seems like they really appreciate how both are invested in the organization, all that stuff. And then, like, if you wanted to move one or the other,
yeah,
then you run into the question of like, well, what kind of star do I want to put next to either of these guys?
Yeah,
and and do you even get the opportunity to do that? Like that guy isn't always even available.
Yeah, initially I kind of thought Franz might be the one on the chopping block because you don't want to be too top heavy, it seems, in today's NBA. Teams are shifting away from that. And I thought maybe he would be a guy you could move to then build out around Paolo and all that. And then you have the defense with Suggs. But I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense that Suggs could be the one because they have the clear need at that position to do the things that they need. And if it's not Suggs, then it's kind of like, what are you doing? So
it's kind of like, well, if they're like, look, we're paying all this money and we're willing to keep paying all this money, but like, what if we traded Jalen Suggs for Derek White? Like, I think Boston would do that now because they're like, okay, we get younger.
They are similar, but he's got a little more. But then it's like, well,
what if Jalen Suggs just becomes Derek White? And then we just have younger Derek White. Like, we don't want to give that up either. And that's what I think their like logic is right now, which is why they're not making any major moves in addition to the fact that Jalen Suggs was injured middle of this year, missed the playoffs. We don't know like how, and he looked like he was getting better before that. So we're going to see. Like, they are betting a lot on development of their best guys. Like, they're not like, okay, like we need Anthony Black to be like a normal NBA player. Anthony Black had a way better playoffs than he did regular season, by the way. Like, he was like the bane of my existence, no pun intended, in the regular season. And then in the playoffs, I was just like, okay, this dude's a gamer. Like, let's go. As an Orlando Magic fan myself. But they're betting on the development of their best guys to be better and make this team work, which is a little bit of a different proposition. But they also
instead of betting on your worst players to develop.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would do that. Okay, a couple other things here. Matt Moore has a piece on his HP basketball Substack. You guys should all check that out. The name of that piece was How Orlando Split the Gap. Basically talks about how Paolo has apparently been, quote, frustrated with the Orlando Magic offense. And like, you might think, look, he's part of the reason that like the offense hasn't been that good. Like, his shooting is like this, that, or the other. But a lot of times he's kicking out the guys that are just bricking. But his turnovers are really more of my issue, and the shot selection, which was starting to get better this year before his abdominal injury, the abdominal strain that both he and Franz both had at different points of the season, or it was an oblique strain. He is getting better. I agree, Fent Jones. He is getting better about the shot selection and the turnovers, but I think it was still an issue in the playoffs this year. But he showed last year in the playoffs, like, he can be that guy, but you need to have a resilient enough offense to withstand the other team's adjustments. And Bane helps with some of that, but it's not, I don't think, enough to like solve things. I think some of these issues are still going to come up. But Paolo has been reportedly frustrated with the offense. He is extension eligible this summer. Now, I'm not saying that Paolo would have like threatened to like not sign his extension this year or anything like that. But like the fact of the matter is you want to keep your superstar happy, especially one that is going to be loyal to your organization, right? You don't only want to like quote unquote cave to demands once they turn into ultimatums. You want to like, okay, like let's keep a dialogue open. Like let's do right by our guy. I do think that Orlando could have gone and probably would have if Bane wasn't available, if Memphis was like, he's not, we're not trading him. They could have gone for a smaller margin move that still netted a non-trivial improvement in the offense. Like I've wanted them to go after Malik Monk for the last couple of years, or a lot of people have talked about Norm Powell, who's about to be on an expiring contract with the Clippers, and who knows if they want to pay him. Or even CJ McCollum, who is a basketball terrorist, to be very clear, but he's a good playoff performer. He's been one of their most reliable player, the Pelicans' most reliable player for the last few years, and we know that he can kill a team single-handedly in the playoffs. And he would improve their three-point shooting and their three-point volume just by virtue of like how many shots he creates there. But I think Orlando was also trying to show Paolo their commitment to a meaningful improvement. And I think those other guys would have been meaningful improvement, probably not as much as Desmond Bane, but just in different ways. But I think they wanted to make this bigger splash to be like, look, like we're going to make this better. And I think that the fact that Paolo's extension eligible also colored the tone of Jeff Weltman's exit interview, where he's like, look, we're in win now mode. Like these guys are ready to have that pressure of expectations put on them. And there aren't many bigger moves that Orlando could have gone for than Desmond Bane, whether you agree about like the fit or whether it solves all of their problems. Bane is like the biggest possible move for them that like would have been on the market in terms of like shot creation and shot making. Right?
Yeah, that's definitely going to improve Paolo's spirits because of all that he can do and bring to the team and not be breaking shots and playing defense. He just brings everything. He's like, I'm going to enjoy watching him so much more on the Magic than on Memphis, where it was like bothering me how good he was and how much he could do and how versatile he is as someone who a lot of teams passed up in the draft. And, you know, just being on Memphis and in the West, it's so annoying. But I'm very happy he's on the Magic. Can't wait to see how it looks.
He already picked up his uniform. He's looking good in the pinstripes. He's got that $1 million smile. I think he's going to be a great Orlando Magic. Everyone talked about how he's got this great reputation as a great locker room and culture guy on top of all that hard work or all the things you want to hear about a player you just traded 4 first-round picks for. I don't think he's going to fix everything, but I do think that Orlando is going to be better next year. And look, the East is wide open. Like, you can't look at how Boston was about to go out this year, and even before the Tatum injury, was set to be making some pretty big changes this summer as they sort of soft tear it down to get under the second apron. But then obviously Jason Tatum does get injured, and now you're looking at like the best team in the East probably is out of the picture now. He did roast the Memphis practice facility. I think he called it the dungeon. The Magic practice facilities are so beautiful too. I'm like, this is very different than the videos I'm seeing of the practices coming out of Denver. The last thing I want to say about the expectations, he is an upgrade on KCP. I don't know what they're going to do at backup point guard now. They're going to figure out something. I don't know if they see Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a potential guy that they could go after for that position. I was thinking about this earlier, how Nickeil, we've talked about on this show how his role has changed this year or been reduced to varying degrees depending on the stretch of the season because of Dante DiVincenzo's arrival to Minnesota. Minnesota can still offer him like a good amount of money depending on what they do this summer. and they are trying to get under the second apron and all that. But I doubt they want to let somebody walk for nothing. But my thing is that if DiVincenzo is staying in Minnesota in any case, whether they're going to trade for KD, not trade Dante for other things that they want to make the roster better, whatever. I feel like Nickeil for the same money would go somewhere where he knows he's going to get a bigger role because he can make even more money or just like play more and like all of that stuff, right? What do you think about that?
I think a lot of teams want Nickeil. They have so much defense as it is, and I think Nas.
Well, that's the thing is like this team refuses to get a point guard. They're just like, who's somebody else that isn't a point guard that is like a wing that like kind of handles the ball, and then we don't get a point guard. It's like so infuriating.
I'd rather just go get like a pure archetype point guard rather than
I agree.
Nickeil. Nickeil's kind of like another. I know he is a point guard, but he just feels like a wing defender in a lot of ways too. And he's kind of inconsistent offensively, and the Magic have that in spades. So
yeah, they have plenty of inconsistent offensive players.
Yeah.
Like I kind of feel bad for Desmond Bane because it's like roughest situation as Memphis must have been offensively. It's just a different beast when you're talking about so many young players that are still trying to find their game and like all this stuff. I hope he has a good time. Like it's gonna be a good like culture fit for Desmond, but he's gonna have his work cut out for him in terms of like how do I help turn this offense around. But Orlando gets credit for doing something. They went big. Hopefully they didn't spend too much money or too many assets and resources. I just have one note here on the implications for Memphis. They realize that they're not close in the context of the Western Conference. Like it would be such a different story if Memphis were in the East, man. Like so different. They have plenty. That's a team that you're like that's a team that could make the Eastern Conference Finals or even make the finals. Although I'm more skeptical of that because of not trusting their offense and
watch them retool though, and then or tear down and then get moved east with expansion.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like you could have been.
I want it to be Minnesota.
I don't think it's going to be then.
I think isn't Minnesota the furthest east though, or is it Memphis?
I think it's
really
Memphis.
Close. It's Memphis. So they figure they need to be flexible, which is why they moved Bane. Obviously, they take back some contracts in Cole Anthony and KCP, but like I said, KCP has fewer years left on his deal. And next year, like after next season, he's going to be expiring. So it'll be pretty easy for them to move off of in, an upgrade at a different position even. So now they're going to retool around Ja and Jaren. And Jaren is actually extension eligible this summer. He still has one more year left on his deal. So if they don't get a deal done, it's not the end of the world. But he is extension eligible. He did not win DPOY and he did not make all NBA. So he is not super max eligible, which kind of helps Memphis out a bit in that sense. But it seems like this was in part a move because I just don't think you're going to trade Bane if you're getting rid of Jaren.
I feel like they traded Bane, to make room for the extension.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest. And that was like a big worry for a lot of Memphis fans for the entire season is how are they going to get this? And if he makes, and they wanted him to make all NBA, and I like JJJ and I wouldn't give him up. So, but if they're like completely tearing down, which I didn't expect to hear, I know people have been talking about that and the fact that they got swept by the Thunder.
I think that's been swiftly rebuffed by a lot of the like people, like reporters out of Memphis that actually follow the team. Is like they're like, no, this is more like a soft retool. I don't think Ja is going anywhere.
I think Ja still needs another season.
If you're planning on moving Ja, you definitely don't move Bane. Because you're like, why would we move like the guy who is like the most versatile, like you said, like you get 4 first-round picks out of this guy. So maybe they are selling high on him, but also it's like he'll be able to work with whatever direction we end up going next if we were to move Ja. So I don't think that they're moving Ja, and I don't think they're moving Jaren.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it's going to take. Definitely not Jaren. Ja is a little bit more on the fence for me. I think they're going to try to give it another season before they would move him.
I'm not saying they shouldn't move Ja.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that this move indicates that they probably are not going to.
Yeah. Unless they could get another offer. Well, I guess, another offer they can't refuse.
For Ja Morant?
Yeah.
I guess. Brooklyn wants a star, right?
I feel like a team, it's kind of risky to go after Ja and like give the house for him if you're another team, unless you're just like wanting to sell a jerseys team.
It's not that Bane is like more valuable than Ja, right? Like Ja is like the engine of an offense. That's different. He has a lot of baggage, off-court baggage that you have to deal with. He's got the injury history, which is in large part due to his play style. It's like this guy every other year is missing 30 plus games due to his shoulder injury from a dunk. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. It seemed like this year he was trying to dunk less because he keeps getting like shoulder injuries from these dunks. And then, of course, in the playoffs, he gets a shoulder injury and a dunk when he kind of gets undercut. It's just like, ugh. Not his fault, but it's like that's how he plays. So like that risk is always there. That's tough too. So it'd be like a team that was like rebuilding and just like we're not getting anywhere with just the draft, and Ja is better than anybody we're gonna get from like, picks like 5 through 15. So we should just go for it. That's why I could see Brooklyn being like the kind of team that goes for him. That would be like a terrible fit, but like apparently they,
Yeah, I could see that.
They want to start. If you like our content, please remember to click the like button and the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our content. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks.